Podcast. We are your hosts, Tony and Dak, and in today's episode, we are finally getting into the coaching carousel and roundup. We figured there's been too many coaches that have been hired, too much stuff we've missed out on, so might as well jump on it before it is too late. All that being said, let's jump into our first section of the episode with our first and 10. This is going to be our coach roundup. This is just the teams that have already hired their new head coach and some little notes on what we could expect if we have any. Kicking it off, Giants hired John Harbaugh. Falcons hired Kevin Stefanski, and Dolphins hired Jeff Hafley. The only coach that I don't really know much about is Jeff Hafley. I don't really watch Packers, but I do know he's their defensive coordinator, and their defense was pretty solid this year up until Micah Parsons got hurt. So I don't really know much about him, but congratulations to him being the new head coach. If you didn't know that, now you do. Um, Falcons bringing in Kevin Stefanski. I love that move. They need an offensive mind in that locker room, and Kevin Stefanski is one of the best offensive minds. I saw a TikTok earlier today about like a fake interview between Kevin Stefanski and their front office, and him just being like, "Are you guys going to trade all your first round picks for a washed up quarterback who's not good anymore?" They were like, "No." And then he also asked if they were going to lose 28-3, which was kind of funny. But just a little
Yeah, that's only my
TikTok
head
bit.
coach.
Yeah. So um, Kevin Stefanski, I think, is a good hire and could see the Falcons really bringing up the NFC South with how weak it is. If he can get in a good defensive coordinator or keep his current one around, they could definitely finalize their overtaking of the NFC South, assuming that the Saints don't take a jump this offseason. The last one being Giants, John Harbaugh. That's the biggest one, I would say. Um, just because John Harbaugh was the belle of the ball for this hiring cycle, a little late too. But he brings culture more than he brings any sort of one side of the ball expertise. He's not a coach that is like offensive minded or defensive minded. Okay, I just got a Twitter notification. I was making sure it wasn't a breaking news Schefter bomb. Um, but John Harbaugh is a big culture guy. Could be fun to see how he builds up the Giants and really gets them squared away, get that ship sailing, and see who he brings in for his coordinators. Dak's
Harbaugh
making weird.
just arrived.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, Harbaugh just arrived in New York.
yeah. So. Oh, and we'll get into it later in this episode. Actually, do you have any roundup notes?
Um, NFL is weird, man. Um, 9 coaching changes in the NFL is just
10.
insane. Like 10, yeah.
There will be 10.
I don't understand. Like you're wondering why we can't get young quarterbacks to play well because you're not in systems very long. I mean, it just like you're ruining the sport. And I think all the sports are being ruined in general because of the simple fact that the need is there, but the want to do the for the need is just not there. And that's just how it is in sports nowadays. No one wants to give that time. They just want the flip of the switch and everything to be okay. And it just doesn't happen that way. You get lucky. Like it's
Instant
just the luck
gratification.
of the draw. And and with the transfer portal and everything else like this in today's world, we're just going to continue to see this. You're going to get guys 2 to 3 years. They're not working out. They're not boom. They're not the standard. Like Indiana plays tonight national championship game. That is the standard. Kurt Cinetti is the standard for all college football coaches now. Like that's just the standard. And that's gonna go into the NFL. It's gonna be everything, and it's insane. Like it's just not something that you can put your eye on and
It's
say
not
yes,
sustainable.
everything. Like, no, that's just not how it works.
So getting into our red zone, this is the meat and potatoes of our episode. This is the bulk of our episode. Um, we have our openings for head coach. Kicking us off with the Raiders. It's what I know the best. I've been a lot more intertwined in these head coaching openings because my head coach is gone. So I'll be taking majority of the lead on these as Dak like trickles in some of his input as well. We both have a list of candidates that we think will take over these head coaching positions. Whether or not we know much about these head coaches is one thing, but they all are
It sticks.
just throwing darts at a board. Um, But that's not to say we're just like, oh, let's just plug a name in here. No, these are all coaches that have at least interviewed. Reportedly, except for the Bills, they don't have any interviews out at the moment. So that's the only one where it's just a shot in the dark. Everybody else has at least interviewed with this team or this list of teams. So starting off again with the Raiders, I have Clint Kubiak being their new head coach. That's who I want the most. I want an offensive mind who is young so that he will be with the Raiders for a long time. The Raiders have not had a long stint coach since probably John Gruden. He was only the coach for like 4 seasons. He's probably the longest tenured head coach in the last 10 years, which is disgusting. It's pathetic, and it's why the team has not been successful for any amount of time. Clint Kubiak, again, young offensive mind, and he's not going to jump the totem pole. Pete Carroll took over way too much. Um, he's not the kind of head coach we need. John Spytek has been obviously taking over the personnel and all that kind of stuff this offseason, along with Tom Brady and then Mark Davis just handing all that kind of stuff over to them. So it's going to be really exciting to see who they bring in. If they bring in a defensive mind, that's okay too, as long as it's a defensive mind that wants nothing to do with the offense. So the offensive coordinator can just maintain it, but I would prefer an offensive head coach so that the offensive coordinator isn't just a revolving door, because we're seeing that with the Texans. We've seen it with many other teams as well. Just got to
Eagles.
give our young quarterback the best choice, best chance to succeed, and that is a offensive mind, and that is Clint Kubiak.
So I'm gonna agree here, not only because of everything you just said, but what better way to prepare your number one overall pick, right? You know, everyone knows who the number one overall pick is, and it's clearly not
Mendoza,
Dante Moore anymore because Dante Moore is going back to Oregon. It's a whole nother
Ty
situation. It's Fernando
Simpson.
Mendoza. Like Mark Davis is at the national championship game watching. Clearly, they're trying to figure out, okay, who's my quarterback? What is he like? Let's see it firsthand. He's wanting to see his future right there. And what better way to give him a young quarterback, give your young quarterback a guy that he can, relate to a lot.
Mhm.
And you're wanting to pair your structure for your years together. Like if you pair those two together, you can build upon that together. You're not going to be like, "Oh, 1 year gone." Like he's a young guy. It's not like, "Oh, we're gonna go hire a coach who's been a coach before, and if he don't work out in 2 years, he's gone." Like, what is that doing for Fernando Mendoza?
Yeah.
It does nothing. And I think a guy like a guy like Kubiak, who has got an offensive, he's a good offensive mind. He was the old offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach and for the Niners a few years ago. So I know he has came from that Shanahan system, so he understands what he can do, and he has probably one of the best rookie running backs that we've seen for a long time if he can actually get something out of there. And
Mhm.
so I like that.
Yeah. Just to
I'm rooting for
piggyback,
your Raiders.
me too. Piggybacking off of that, not only is Mark Davis there, but also Tom Brady and John Spytek, the all three of the big head honchos of the Raiders organization are all there. But another little fun fact, or something that'd be really cool to happen this offseason for the Raiders, and then we'll get to the next teams, would be if Derek Carr came in as a QB coach. Now you might be thinking, you just want to see a shot in the dark, da 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 da. But who was Derek Carr's offensive coordinator his last season as the Saints quarterback? Clint Kubiak.
Kubiak. Yeah.
Exactly. So imagine how great would it be to see Derek Carr on the sideline teaching Fernando Mendoza how to run this uh, scheme the right way. Derek
Yeah,
Carr
because like
wasn't the best.
Mendoza is an RPO guru right
Hmm.
now, and I don't
Yeah.
necessarily think that's going to be sustainable with that offensive line to be an RPO guru type of team.
Now with that
Not
offensive
with
mind,
your
they also have to play the players at the right position. But yeah.
exactly.
Um, so, but just picture Derek Carr actually being able to coach up the next generation. And I know Raiders fans are all wishy-washy about Derek Carr, blah 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 blah. You're wrong if you don't think Derek Carr was a good quarterback. He's not the shiny guy. He's not the Josh Allen. He's not the whatever. But he's at least the Alex Smith who could have gotten you to the Super Bowl
Or
if you did
Carson
something.
Wentz.
Carson, no, get Carson Wentz out of here. He's a bum. He had one good year. Don't talk to me about Carson Wentz. I would rather take Andy Dalton. That's not true, but
Wow.
that's not true. Um,
Wow.
getting to the next team, we have the Ravens. That was the shocking firing of the NFL offseason, at least one of them now, as of today,
I
at
think it's still
least.
more shocking. Like I think it's still more
I
shocking
I don't know about
than what we're gonna talk about.
maybe.
And
But I
maybe,
have Brian Flores. This may seem silly, but he fits the Steelers' turnstile of head coaches. A younger head coach who has a defensive mind who will be there for 20 years. Brian Flores is not that old. I believe he's in his 30s or 40s, and coach.
wait, hold on. You said the Steelers, but we're talking about the Ravens here.
I said, did I say the Ravens or did I say the
Yeah,
Steelers?
Raven. You said Ravens. You said Steelers, but in your notes you have somebody different
Oh
for the
yeah,
Steelers
sorry, no,
too.
sorry. That's my notes for the Steelers. Ravens, for the Ravens, we have Brian Flores, so it is still Brian Flores. Um, him walking into the Ravens situation passes up anything that happened with the Dolphins. He doesn't have to worry about having Tua. He doesn't have to worry about a young quarterback. He shouldn't have to worry about the offense at all if he brings in a good coordinator. He also has fun pieces on their defense to use, whether it be Kyle Hamilton, Nate Wiggins, or Malachi Starks. He has good cornerstone pieces that are young on that defense and good cornerstone pieces on that offense. You just have to find somebody who will properly utilize them and get the ball rolling. Lamar Jackson
He's
didn't
also
look
got a
good his last couple
he's got a
weeks.
decent pick too. He's gonna
Yeah.
have a top 18 pick, a top
Mm-hmm.
16 pick. That's you might be able to get a good defensive line guy in there too, and
Yeah.
and that pick. So,
And
you know,
Derrick Henry's also on his way out too. So the sooner you can capitalize on them, the sooner the better.
I said Mike McDaniel just because I think McDaniel's probably one of the best offensive minded coaches here that is not going to end up, with a younger team. And I think what McDaniel can do again from the Shanahan system, um, with Lamar would just be absolutely insane. I think with Lamar's just athleticism and able to just you know read a play and just his decision making has gotten a whole lot better, and for him to just sit back in the pocket and not have to run. But if you put Lamar in a situation to where he's got an offensive guru to head coach that isn't just about pound and ground, I think it'll succeed him well. And I think you got to get the receivers going. You can't waste these first round picks on these receivers and they just turn out to be nothing. What can McDaniel do with Rashad Bateman, with Zay Flowers? Mark Andrews just resigned. What can he do with these guys, because you don't want them to be a waste.
Mm-hmm.
Your defense will figure itself out. I think a lot of injuries on that defense hurt them in general. I think it's a lot better than what it was. Um, I'm not too worried. I think the Ravens are still a playoff team, given the right coach hits that system.
Yeah.
That's why the John Harbaugh fire was so crazy.
Mm-hmm. So, piggybacking off of what he said, Mike McDaniel is my new head coach for the next team, being the Buffalo Bills. For those of you that are watching today, this is recorded on Monday. So, if we say today, that's why. Obviously, when this is uploaded, it will not be today. But today, Monday, Sean McDermott was fired. We called it in last week's episode, so even more reason to follow and watch us some more. Posted the clips on TikTok and all that fun stuff. But Mike McDaniel with Josh Allen and James Cook would be absolutely disgusting. The effectiveness he had with the Dolphins' run game with Devon Achane would be just expounded upon with Josh Allen and James Cook. He specializes in outside runs, and having James Cook's explosiveness and ability to just take it to the house every run would just be so electric. And getting him to see if we could actually utilize Keon Coleman. I don't know if Brandon Cooks will still be there, but Keon Coleman and I
He's
don't,
on a vet minimum.
and then I think it's Gabe Davis too. He's got some other receiver there, but seeing him and what he could do to get a real receiver in there, a real bona fide number one like he has with Stephon Diggs, what Josh Allen has with Stephon Diggs, would be really cool. Another thing that might be fun is if Jalen Waddle shakes loose. It'd be fun to see if Mike McDaniel made a play to trade for him. Um,
Not going in division. I don't.
yeah, it's happened before though.
Yeah, I don't have anyone for this Bills job.
Yeah.
I think it's too early to even say. I think um Sean McDermott's firing kind of opens up doors for everyone else. I think it's going to be another, okay, who's going where now? The John Harbaugh thing was like, okay, That's the first domino to fall.
Mm-hmm.
But now some dominoes got put back up because there's another opening available.
Yeah.
And I think based off who goes to the Bills is going to be who's going where, because the Bills is the top job now. I think it was the Ravens, but now I think it's the Bills just because you're a farther playoff team, and you just have the former MVP of Josh Allen. Bills and Ravens, two very good playoff teams.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever, if Mike McDaniel ended up going to the Bills, that's again in division. He's got something to prove. But I just think it's too early for me to say. I need to see who's interviewing where, who takes their shots
Mm-hmm.
there, before anything happens there. Josh Allen's gonna he's gonna have a big say. I think Josh Allen is turned that organization around. I think he's gonna have a big say versus what Lamar has done with the Ravens. Lamar's not gonna get so much say to what the Ravens do with their head coach. I think it's a big difference with the Bills.
Yeah. I would be interested to see if Joe Brady just took over a head coach. He's our current offensive coordinator, and he is already in the head coaching carousel, to say so to speak. So it'd be fun to see if they just brought him up. Because I did really like his hook and ladder play late in the fourth quarter with the Bills. It was really fun.
Yeah, it was good. It was a good one.
Now, actually, to the Steelers is Anthony Weaver. He's my suggestion. He is the current Dolphins defensive coordinator, and like I accidentally mentioned earlier, he fits the Steelers in terms of how they hire their head coaches. They hire them young. Funnily enough, he's actually a year older than um, Brian Flores, but my statement still stands. Coaches coach forever, and Anthony Weaver's defense has been successful, especially with the Dolphins. Otherwise, he wouldn't be a head coaching candidate. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like I know a whole bunch about Anthony Weaver, but for him to be mentioned in coaching is definitely something to keep an eye on. But as I mentioned, he's a young defensive mind at 45 years old, and then his fits the Steelers' trend of hiring a young defensive coach and keeping them in the program for 20 plus years. Well, 19 in the case of Mike.
So I'm gonna go with what you said earlier. I like the Brian Flores here. I just think because the Steelers have the highest overall paid defense in the NFL, right? What better way to to give a coach that has a proven defense that's done it for a while, has got some opportunities at head coach. I think the Steelers have a lot more questions to answer anyways. Why not figure out what's going wrong with this defense? Because you're giving them all this money anyways. Figure out what's going on with the defense because the defense can win you games. Okay, they can stop you from scoring. Look at the Cleveland Browns this year. Okay, their defense won them some games this year. You figure out what you're gonna do on offense. Hopefully the Steelers don't make as bad decisions of what they do on offense as the Cleveland Browns. Um, but I think you figure out the defense. Brian Flores figures that out with the T.J. Watts, with the Cam Haywards. What are you gonna do with Jalen Ramsey? What are you gonna do with Kyle Duggar? There's some pieces in there that you traded for. What are you gonna do with all of that? And Patrick Queen. I think Patrick Queen's a free agent. I believe
I have no idea.
he might be leaving there, but bring in a guy like that, figure out your defense first because that's how you've been known. The Steelers have been known for their defense. They've not really been known for their offense. I seen a tweet the other day that said the Steelers and Mike Tomlin, I forget who tweeted it out, or Rashad Mendenhall said that the Steelers have had only one good Super Bowl or one good quarterback performance out of the 18 years that
Mike Tomlin was
oh my
coach.
goodness. Mike Tomlin was there. So
Yeah.
again, they're not been known for their offense. They've
Yeah.
been known for their defense.
Yeah, and I think so. The reason I didn't choose Brian Flores here is because of the quarterback positioning. I don't think that Brian Flores wants even the possibility of not having an answer at quarterback. Just bringing out skeletons out of the closet. I don't think that's something that anybody wants to take a chance on. Not saying that he hasn't moved on, hasn't grown, anything like that, but it's just a risk a lot of teams probably aren't willing to take. Now to the Browns, going back down to keeping in the same division. I had Jim Schwartz. I think you're going to have a hard time finding a quality head coaching candidate to go and bring into this job. You don't have a good quarterback. You don't have O-line. You don't really have an offensive any receivers or weapons in general. And then their defense is good, but for how long? How much of that is just on Miles Garrett's plate? Carson Schweschinger is another player that they have who is just excellent, but how much of it is sustainable? They don't have a lot of big names. They don't have anything that's really there. So keeping Jim Schwartz, who is their current defensive coordinator, there would allow them to have some just sustainability in terms of how their defense plays and keeping their strong suit the strong suit and not piggybacking off of, okay, now we got to go figure out how to build out this offense because Jim Schwartz can just focus on the defense and then maybe he brings an offensive coordinator to help him build out that offense, but keep that over time and not have to jump into it and full send and try to win now because that's just not sustainable. That's not doesn't make sense. So
Yeah, so I'm gonna say to me it doesn't necessarily matter because I think they're still bad. Like I don't think it necessarily matters who they bring in just yet. I don't think this team is there to even worry necessarily about a head coach. I think as a GM and from the owner's perspective, we got to figure out our identity. I know you figure out your identity with your head coach, but we got to figure out what we're truly doing here because I don't think the Browns, I think, is going to be one of the worst spots as the head coach. Right. And I think the only thing you can really do is hire internally because of the simple fact that no one, you don't want to really go to the Cleveland Browns to coach. I mean, they've had two successful years and how long, and they completely gave up on them.
mm-hmm.
And so the problem is if you hire Jim Schwartz, can he keep Tommy Reese as the OC? Because Tommy Reese is also applied for that head coaching job and also has gone other places for their head coaching jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So like what are you going to do with that is a complete different story.
Yeah. The other part of this hire is Jim Schwartz is 59 years old. He doesn't have to be a long term fit. He can be somebody who just keeps the defense solid and they build out that offense and then they find a new head coach that can really expound
Yeah.
upon a younger offense that actually makes sense. They don't have to worry about the Deshaun Watson stuff. But right now they kind of just need a shoe in and just run with it while they can
Figure
and just
out what
move
we're
on to the
going
next.
to do.
A bridge head coach that
Yes.
actually
And it's
like
kind of
keeps
like
them
what
afloat.
it's exactly what the head coach Lovey Smith was
Mm-hmm.
for the Texans a
Texans,
few
yeah.
years ago. He was a bridge coach and he knew it. He knew it.
Which really sucked because he was actually pretty solid. Um, Now to the Cardinals, the second to last opening that we have. I have Jesse Minter. I'm not going to act like I have any great big knowledge about the Cardinals or anything along those lines, but I do know that Jonathan Gannon was a defensive-minded head coach, and so is Jesse Minter. Jesse Minter is currently the defensive coordinator for the Cardinals, so seeing him and having him come in is just another young defensive mind. Seeing if they can really build off of the defensive success, if at all, and just they don't really have the pieces on offense right now because Kyler Murray may be their coach, might be their quarterback. If I could speak
Yeah,
words.
who knows?
Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Wilson, they seem to have been unlocked a little bit, but in order to really do that, they have to have some stability at quarterback, and their defense has to be consistent. And Jesse Minter's defense has been consistent, especially with the, um, yeah, Chargers.
Yeah, I'm not gonna sit here and act like I know anything that the Cardinals are gonna do.
Yeah,
I don't
that'd be my
necessarily
brother's
know
question.
what they're even trying to find, what they're trying to look for. I think um you either got to figure out if you're staying with Kyler, if you're not. That
Mm-hmm.
ultimately tells me what we're going to do as a head coach
Yeah.
because you still have a pretty high pick. You have a chance of getting um Ty Simpson.
Hmm.
Um because you have that early pick, do you go that route? Like, you got to figure out what route you want to go in, and that pretty much tells me, okay, what coach we're going to go after. And I know it's probably the opposite. You figure out what coach you want, and then you go that route. But I don't necessarily know how much or what they're going to do. But again, I think it's I think the Cardinals' job is a little interesting, but you also got to think who they're playing 3 or 6 times in a year. You play that division. You play 3 playoff teams that deep runs that the Seahawks defense isn't going away.
Yeah.
The Rams offense probably isn't going to go away for the next 2 to 3 years. And if they find another quarterback or trade for another quarterback, good luck.
Mm-hmm.
Because I could only imagine if the Rams ended up trading for a quarterback that's once out somewhere, wherever they're at. Like
Mac
I don't
Jones.
necessarily know any like quarterbacks like that, but like they're not going away. And clearly the San Francisco 49ers aren't going away. They find a way every year.
Goes and gets
Like
Tua.
what do you do there? You know, that's ultimately what's going to come into the job. I know Robert Saleh has interviewed, but I don't see Robert Saleh taking a job. I think he's just feeling out his what he needs, what he's done. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I think he'll be there for another year for the Niners. Getting Nick Bosa back, getting Fred Warner back, I think he can really show what he can do as a head coach. And next year's coaching cycle, I think, will open up, and he could probably get a job then.
Yeah, I'm interested in just talking about that division for a second. I'm interested to see what if the Rams win the Super Bowl, what does Matt Stafford do? Does he play another year or does he call it quits? I would
I think
retire
he
on
needs to call
top.
it quits. Yeah,
So,
that's the whole Peyton Manning
but
thing,
then what
right?
would the Rams
Retire on
do?
top.
Who do they get at quarterback? Tua, Malik Willis, Mac Jones. That could be fun. That could be fun.
You go get Mac, and
You'd have
then
to trade for him
you
though, which would suck.
he's trading in division from the Niners.
Yeah,
He's on a
I don't
one
think that would
year
happen.
$6 million deal. You'll just trade a third round pick for him, and you got him,
I mean,
third or fourth.
that depends on how much the Niners value him, though. But that's a conversation for a different episode. Um, the last and probably the worst job that we have this offseason is the
Don't
Titans.
matter.
It's
Don't matter.
I have
Don't matter.
Matt Nagy being their head coach because it's a bad decision, but he's at least an offensive mind to help Cam Ward. I don't think Matt Nagy is a head coach. I really don't. Not after what he did with the Bears. I'm sure he made the playoffs twice, but I just don't see. I feel like if the Titans interviewed not only Matt Nagy but also Jason Garrett, I think they'd be better off hiring Jason Garrett. I just think that the Cowboys have too big of a market for Jason Garrett to have really survived, and the Titans don't have that. So,
Yeah, I have him going with Mike LaFleur just because he
mm,
is a offensive coach too.
yeah,
And I think that the narrative I think now is you have to pair your head coach with an offensive mind, or your head coach has to be an offensive minded guy with a
with
young
your young
quarterback. I
quarterback.
think that's the kind of the narrative. And you got to get if you do that for Cam Ward, that's going to get the fan base off your back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've seen what happened with the Matt Eberfluses, you know, getting an early pick and then drafting a quarterback.
Yeah,
You know, it doesn't work out. Your head coach with a young quarterback like that needs to be a offensive minded head coach.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, so that'll wrap up our coaching carousel and roundup episode. Leave your comments down below where you think these coaches will be going. Let us know if you think we're right. Let us know if you think we're crazy. All that fun stuff. Are there any more coaches that get fired? That's another fun fact, little fun thing that could be happening. Um, but that'll finish us out. Hope you guys enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe. Follow us on all the things down below. And don't forget to watch all of the videos that we have. Don't forget to watch our video from yesterday, which was a Monday post, which was our divisional championship review and preview. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you guys next week.